Aha! It's worked. Well, here we
Nice,
are.
Nick. You see, I didn't talk while the introduction was going.
Right, good. We're getting a little bit better with our production values.
Yes, correct.
Hopefully, I got better lighting. Man, I'll tell you, I get tired every week carrying this bookcase around with me from place to place. I'm tired of reading the same ones. I want to change them, but I can't.
Right. It's yeah. I mean, you don't use any other screen, or green screen, do you?
There is a green screen behind me, but the software is quite clever in that you don't actually need a green screen. It just makes it a little bit better.
I've got a green screen. It's just
you've got a green screen with bullet holes.
With bullet holes.
Yeah. Well, look, we're glad to be back with you, and we want to have a little bit of fun with you today. I've got some announcements. We have a special guest next week, Mike Patton. He's the CEO of DSB, a very successful flooring enterprise on the West Coast. And Mike is a real student of the industry and has been very deep into looking at company valuations and mergers and acquisitions, and got some real insights on where the industry is going. So it'll be fascinating to have him on the show next week. So make sure you join next week. You won't be just listening to me and Andre, but this week Andre and I going solo on the subject of does size really matter in the business? And
I thought I thought the topic was big is beautiful. Is big beautiful? Sorry.
Well, yeah, does size matter? It's the same thing.
Oh, okay. I was just asking.
Well, if you look at the way this is what it went out in terms of our advertisements. Does size matter in the flooring business? So
I didn't see that one.
Okay.
Completely gone.
Okay, but big is beautiful is a synonym for the same thing. So we're in the same place. You're in the right studio, Andre.
Okay, good. I was just checking because the bloody production manager he's on holiday again.
So it's fascinating. Andre and I were reminiscing on the fact that we have a book in production.
Don't go there, please.
Well, but the point being is, the opening paragraph of the book, has really got to change, because when we wrote the book, probably 12 months ago, there wasn't really a lot of M&A activity. The industry was pretty steady, not a lot of shift in the organization. But hey, we're going to have to change that, because right now, the content in the book is about how you really optimize your flooring business. So you'll really enjoy reading it when we release it. And I'm saying this publicly because Andre's been on my back.
I'm going to be dead.
To get it out. So here I am. I'm publicly saying, Andre, that we'll get this finished and get it out.
Yeah.
But hey, hasn't the industry changed? A year's made such a difference. There's so much strategic.
It really has, Mick. It really has. If you think about it, it was actually quite fascinating. We were talking with another one of our clients. When was it? Yesterday. And we just by the side, we sort of raised this topic about guys, do you feel that things are different? And there was a resonant yes. Things and not only did they say they spoke about it's changed, but they speak about the change happening from month to month now. So this industry's slowly being woken up. I think if look, and I may be talking out of turn, but I think if you think about this industry maybe 10 years ago, people were, first of all, the industry was fairly.
Was that 10 years ago? Was that when your hair was dark?
Mate, yeah, 10 years ago, man, I was like a spring bloody chicken, Today, I need a friggin' walking stick,
You need
And
a
only thing-
to get you out of that
The only
seat.
thing I'm going to do with that damn walking stick is to beat you over the head about the book.
Anyway, 10 years ago,
Right. You think about it 10 years ago, look, I mean, there was always a little bit of craziness in terms of people pricing it, but the industry was what it is. There was a very traditional way that, people went to business. And the existing players, always made some money and so on. And things were stable, and today, I think there is a bit of a shakeup in the industry. And, the thing that I'm finding fascinating, Mick, is really the why. Why is suddenly, for example, obviously the big topic is, is big is beautiful. There is a much more aggressive desire for, acquisition. So, in the old days, to get out of this industry was really hard. I mean, there were very few people that said, "Oh, well, hell, the one thing I want to do is buy a flooring company." It wasn't really that sexy. And suddenly, the industry is starting to become sexy. And, there are newer, younger players coming in. There is some shift happening. I think the thing for me is, and I mean, you and I spoke about this quite a bit, is, why is it suddenly this resurgence? So it's becoming sort of normal. You know what I mean? In most industries, there is a certain component. There's 10% of the industry turns whereas in the commercial flooring industry, it was a lot lower than that, right?
And we're seeing this with our clients. Several years ago, it was about how do we optimize our current business. Today, it's a lot more about how do we scale the business, how do we grow, how do we get the best out of our salespeople, how do we get new business in, and then that leads to what markets do we need to be in? Are there some bolt-on acquisitions? And so this appetite for scale is very present in all of the conversations that we're having.
Right, and yes, and so I think there's two things that are happening. Number one, the way that our CEOs and owners are thinking is changing. There's no doubt about it. And I think this is, and I'll go back. We spoke about this right in the beginning. With Chuck Bodie, and Chuck is obviously, he's got incredible, let's call it reference in this community. And I mean, everybody knows who Chuck is, but the beautiful thing, and I still come back to it, is, 2 years ago when he wrote his speech to the StarNet group, and he said, change is imminent. And at that point, really, there was no significant evidence of, stuff, but he predicted this. And I'm going to be fascinated I'm hopefully we're going to get Chuck on our show very soon. You know what I mean? But I'm going to be fascinated to ask Chuck and say, hey, Chuck, when you wrote that, what was sort of in the back of your mind? Because there was something that you saw that nobody else, because I spoke to a lot of people, subsequent to that, and they said, well, what's he really talking about change? What can change? That was the common sort of denominator. What can change? What can? And yet, in that 2-year time frame, significant things have changed. I mean, you've got private equity coming into this industry. Now, when private equity starts coming into, so two things are happening. Okay, now let's just go back. I mean, let's think about this, because I'd love anybody who's possibly, if you've got absolutely nothing to do today, at 11 o'clock, if there's somebody out there that is sort of, has got flooring somewhere in their head, right, and they've got absolutely nothing else, they're going to be on the show. So if you are, okay, my question is, you think about this, if private equity is starting to come into the industry, What does that tell us? I mean, then normally to me, normally when private equity starts coming, there is something that they believe, is, because 9 out of 10 times, forget about what people say. When they come into the industry, it's about one thing only. All right, I'm going to make money out of this.
Right.
Trust me, that's what it's about. And even the one thing that I can say is that today, and this is going to change. I will make a prediction today. It's going to change. Today, people are transacting at very low price earnings multiples, or the PE multiples, or the purchase price is, in relation to, let's call it the volume of the business, how much people are paying for it is, it's rock bottom prices, basically. Compared to, if you had to look at some other industry and you say, okay, here's a $10 million business. How much would people be paying for a $10 million business? And you go to a commercial flooring business and how much people would be paying, right? And, in our industry today, transactions are 2.5 to 3.5. That's what people are paying.
Yeah, and just to give some context, software companies, software as a service companies, where they've got more of a recurring subscription model, because they can see that revenue, up ahead, because you're buying the cash flows into the future. They're selling around, you can get 10 times.
10 times revenue, not 10 times, not 10 times EBIT. So
10 times revenue. Yeah.
We're talking about 2.5 to 3.5 times, profit or EBIT. Sometimes they use EBIT. Mm-hmm. In our business, EBITDA is most probably, what everybody feels comfortable with. Because first of all, there's very little depreciation in our industry. Unless you are in the concrete business. You know what I mean? Because then suddenly, you need equipment. The capital expenditure is high. So
right.
And so the first thing is, if private equity is coming into this industry, which they are, and I mean, Mick, you and I on its own have noticed, that
we got part of the Bodie clan on the call today. Matt Bodie says he'll sell his business for 10 times revenue today.
Hey, Matt, I got 10 buyers for you. No problem, mate. Absolutely. Hey, Matt, send regards to your dad. I love him, man. I really do. Yeah. But anyway, I'm his big fan. So here's the thing. If we are selling our businesses for these seriously low prices, right? Which, what is that saying? First of all, there are transactions happening at low prices. That is the thing. But I tell you what, over time, that's going to change. You're going to find that there, specifically as demanding, well, I mean, it's just a demand supply issue. But the issue is that people are going to realize that two things are going to happen. A lot of these acquisitions are going to fail. That's my first prediction. They will fail. There's no doubt about it. And let me explain why. Unless if it's a strategic acquisition, unless the systems, the culture is well integrated, these are things that people think, well, it's just a bunch of guys bidding on a bid board. They're in a different location, and I want to be in that location. And they call it, what are the words that they're using today? Tuck-ins, isn't that right?
Right. Well,
it's a tuck-in.
Right. Before I got Andre got me excited about commercial flooring. I was consulting with Fortune 500 companies, and we did a lot of M&A type of activity. And the facts were, I think it was Harvard did a study of all of the transactions. 2/3 of all acquisitions failed to deliver the value set out in their initial thesis. And the primary reason is one of culture, of the leadership style and being able to integrate different environments. So if you are thinking about a tuck-in, or you are thinking about acquiring somebody else, understanding the culture and the values of that organization and having a plan to merge those and take the best from both organizations is going to be imperative if you're going to want to get value out of that transaction. Sorry, Andre, I jumped in there.
Yeah, well, bloody less jumping. Okay, so 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 the thing is, and we are talking about all kinds of things. I mean, I have no thought pattern, zero. You know what I mean? It goes from there to there to there to there to there, and then it ends nowhere. But so that's the first thing I think that, and I know I would get a lot of resistance from this, because there will be people that are going to say, well, we did some tuck-ins and very, very successful. Okay, now, the next problem is that a lot of times people thinking about doing, they don't have the management bandwidth to deal with. So what they're really doing is they're saying, I'm going to take that entity, I'm putting it, I'm going to buy it, and I hope things just carry on the way they are. As long as they just maintain their existing revenues and they shut up and they don't give me a hard time, I'm going to be good. So, the driver behind this, and this is my view, Mick, the driver behind this is people believe in that, and I think there's truth to this. I really do believe there's truth. People believe that if, the larger we are, the larger the amount we buy, the more strength we have with vendors. And even if you really think, if you are in that, let's call it, you wanting to purchase, let's call them, what do we want to call our commercial dealers, if you wish. I don't know where the word dealer came from, but anyway, there's got to be some history around that. But if you want to call them dealers, the greater your purchase volume, the more strength you have. Hey, Carol.
Hey, Carol, good to see you on the call.
Somebody agrees with me. My goodness, Carol. Wow. I love it. Carol, one thing, the reason why we don't do this live like is in real person, because, we worry about the tomatoes that get thrown at us. But anyway.
So I just want to give a shout out to Carol. Just check out, if you're not connected with Carol on LinkedIn, go on LinkedIn. Her headline in LinkedIn is The Elevator Lady. That's what she does. She is such a brand and represents her company, The Elevated Cab. But she is the go-to person for elevators, and I love her LinkedIn profile. So take a look at that.
Well, actually, what a fantastic. There is a great example of a fantastic tuck-in. I mean, there, those, but the Carol.
So for the audience, The Elevated Cab was an independent, business. Carol's one of the principals there, and has been, is now part of corporate floors, and we do know the people in both those organizations, or in the one entity, and that cultural match was very much in alignment, and I'm sure that will be an absolute success in terms of being able to achieve some scale and some size, and their size really does matter because it gives them the ability to invest more on that side of the business. So their size does matter because it gives you a finance base to be able to do more strategic things.
Right, and look, and now I'm going to reverse gear, but I mean, you look at the people like Carol. I mean, they're invested in the success of that, that transaction. So okay, that's different. But normally you don't have an invested seller. The seller, I mean, ultimately, what do they want? Well, there's some seller notes that are involved. They want to make sure that those seller notes get paid. And when those seller notes get paid, unless there's a really good transition, the thing ultimately fails. And the other thing that happens is, the owners of these companies do have strong relationships. If you go and say, okay, now, part of my due diligence is I'm going to look at, I'm going to look at your sales by salesperson. And, owners have learned, right, so the hard way, and I've taught them this, many of them this over the years, don't put your name on a sale, because all that shows is dependence on the owner, right? So make sure that you start transferring your book of business to, a salesperson, right? So that's step number one. Very basic, but it's step number one. Because if that relationship is totally dependent on you, you are already devaluing your business. Somebody can just take that and say, those sales don't exist, basically. Okay, so that said beside, transfer your book of business to a salesperson. But even when that happens, and a lot of times it happens successfully because, well, number one, the salesperson's very engaged in that. Why? Because, most of us are great farmers, aren't we? So we look after that book of business. We get commission out of that. We didn't have to acquire that in the first place. So there's a lot of, of synergies that make that successful. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, that owner normally is involved with that customer in some way. They still call each other. There is a connection. When that goes away, often the salesperson doesn't have that same gravitas. Don't you think that's nice? Gravitas. Now, for all of you, there's a new strategic word out there. It's called gravitas. We're gonna be on the okay. And that's what happens. And my issue is that over time we're gonna find that Mick, here's the thing: you look at any group, StarNet, any one of the groups, that everybody has my color hair, and okay, maybe I'm a little bit older than most, but pretty much most people are at the point where they have to think about transition. There's very few. Show me the flooring companies that are run by the new generation. I mean, how many Curtis Blantons are there out there?
Well, give a shout out to Matt. Him and Emily.
Oh, Matt. Okay, there's Matt. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Matt is one. Okay, and you can see Matt's definitely going to be one of them. If you're in this industry, watch out for Matt. He's going to be good. This boy is going to be good.
Well, you got our Mr. GQ, who was on the show a few weeks ago, Grant Petrozelio with their Universal Metro. He's new generation.
Right, but that's what I'm trying to say is you can count them on two hands, maybe. Really, if you think about it, you can count them on two hands, and there's not really that much. Now, I think that's slowly changing. I think succession planning, 5 years ago was a swear word inside many of these the flooring organizations. Today, it's called strategic, right? So already just that shift on its own, if you think about it, the change in thinking has been fairly significant, right? So you're getting these new players come in, and I think they're going to be good. This next generation they think differently. There's no doubt about it. They think so differently. They're open to building to building a business that is going to scale without their direct, sales involvement. You know what I mean? And that's, now it's becoming more traditional. Do you know what I mean? It's becoming, okay, well, we're driving the machine as opposed to, this concept of just pure relationship. And so if you think about it,
let me just take that point a little bit, because on the point of if size really matters, if we want to get bigger, what we've discovered and what we've seen is a lot of organizations, when they try and get bigger, how do they get bigger? Well, we got to get more salespeople, right? We've got to put more, and we acquire more salespeople. We've talked about this before, but your SG&A costs go up as quickly as your new revenue coming in. So you're ultimately, that becomes a little challenging. So size is important when we can scale our revenues, but not our costs. So ultimately, our profitability needs rises. So that when we're able to size ourselves and take advantage and leverage our costs to deliver more revenue. Remember, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. Then size really, really is important.
Yeah, but let me tell you this is what I think. I believe that the problem is that it takes at least a year. Even if, so what do people say? The new salesperson I want to get must have a book of business. And I can tell you right now, that same guy who comes to another flooring entity still takes him a year or her a year before they become, productive. So there is a real cost that, and that's, so every time I want to grow, I've got this year that I have to deal with. And that becomes my dilemma, doesn't it? All right. Because, I've got to invest in a year. And then on top of that, the more salespeople I have, the more I've got to manage these guys, or at least I believe the more I've got to manage these guys, the more I've got to whatever. It's just more stuff. So it becomes that is, but however, you start looking at, the younger generation, they're seeing this differently, right? My generation says, you're a sales guy. The way that you get compensated is commission. Because you're going to be really motivated to go and do stuff. Okay. And 90% of the salespeople, as good as they are driven on, the existing customer base. So now the new generation are thinking differently. They're saying, hang on, you know what? There are different ways to compensate, and how we build scale is going to be, it's going to be different. And that these are the shifts that are busy happening right now. And, a lot of times there's going to be a lot of our businesses that are there. Trust me, Mick, they are on the back foot. They're going to have to change significantly to keep up with the new age businesses that are being developed. So, and the way that they're reacting to this is they're acquiring, because they're telling salespeople, we got to acquire new business. So the directive is, we got to acquire new business. We got to grow. Because we want to be important to the vendor. They have to be. We have to be important to the vendor. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to be important because.
So you're saying that size really does matter from a vendor or negotiation.
How much you buy from me?
Right.
Yeah. Let's be real about it.
Let me throw you a little bit of a curveball. And what if you were so tightly niched? In other words, you were a smaller, agile, flooring company that just focused on one segment. Might be purely healthcare, hospital type work. The strategic advantage there wouldn't be size, but it would be focus. So is bigger always beautiful, as you would open with? Is bigger always better? What do you feel about that?
Well, I think the which is a beautiful point, Mick. I mean, specialization. I'm saying going forward, there's going to be two strategic models that are going to come out of this, right? There's going to be big is beautiful. And you know what? I'm just a friggin' elephant. And because I'm an elephant, I'm going to be successful. I'm the bigger I am, the bigger jobs I can do. I may not be that good, but I can do these big jobs because, the actual risk element from the GC's viewpoint is less. And one of the things I have noticed, Mick, over time is that, very large jobs go to the larger flooring contractors. It is because, and there's a real reason for it. I mean, I'm saying the larger flooring contractors that at least can deliver, because there is a degree of risk that, the GC, inherent risk that the GC has when they, contract with a flooring contractor. Yeah, for a large job. I'm talking about, those $5 million north jobs. So,
well, and of course, the working capital requirement is huge. And so, having scale in a business to be able to finance those projects is important. And, outside the purview of some of the smaller flooring contractors. So obviously, in that case, size does matter.
Yeah, it does, and the balance sheet does matter. You know, your pre-qualification has, you know, it does matter. You know, so the way you do your pre-qualification strategy, if you're going to go for those big jobs, you know, you've got to make sure that, you know, that your potential customer understands that you're capable, financially capable. You know, and sometimes we don't do that. We just submit our financials and the end. You know, and the people that look at the pre-qualification versus the people that actually, you know, so, you know, every GC, every large GC has the no sales department. You know
that. We've all got one.
Yeah.
So
you and I'm the no sales department.
I'm in the sales department and you're in the no sales department.
We make a perfect team. We guaranteed to only get 50%. Oh, man. Yeah. Hell, guys, let me tell you something. If you ever want us to come and do work for you, please keep me far away because I'm the no sales department. You know, Mick says to me, look, you know, I'm going to talk to these guys first and I'm going to, you know, speak to them nicely and not have you involved. Is that okay? And he sort of says it in a reasonably sort of, you know, COVID way, you know. So what he really saying, please just stay the hell away. You know, that's what he's saying. Anyway, are we on topic? So
yeah, no, we're talking about size of and so yeah, we do agree size matters. And my point about the niche is you can be big, but then the point Andre made is specialization is going to be one of the key themes as you grow, being able to industrialize your organization so that you're not just a group of artisans practicing the craft of laying you know, beautiful floors and finishes, but you have a machine that can scale and get bigger. So there's got, and you all understand specialization. You understand that, you know, project management is different from sales, but the other specialization is, you know, the distinction between sales and business development, because salespeople love to sell, but they don't like to prospect. So if you can feed opportunity into the machine and then have your salespeople deal with that and run those relationships, and then let project management, you know, deliver it and be able to specialize. So as your salespeople then go to market, they're going to specialize in different segments. So niching in segments, specializing your sales versus business development capability to produce a lead generation and revenue factory, and then having the quality to be able to execute against that is how you're going to get this size and scale that's going to deliver, you know, a higher level of, you know, if the PE companies can see it, we know it's there, and you know, we just got to.
Oh, Mick, what a beautiful point! What a beautiful point.
You know, they're not smarter than you guys watching, right? They're just not. It's funny, right? This is a completely different example, but I wanted to share with you. So I was, you know, Fortune 500. I was working with Pfizer. You know, they saved the world with their drug. In fact, the factory where they produce some of those vaccines, I actually did, you know, an improvement project in that factory. But anyway, they asked me to look at another business in their portfolio to see if I could optimize it. And I mean, Pfizer's a big company, right? And we could see, you know, $40-50 million worth of improvement potential. So we put a project together to try and go after that 40 million. And the management said, oh, no, we don't want to touch that. And, oh, that's going to be a little difficult. And they dialed it back to something, you know, where it was quite a small improvement, you know, $5 to $10 million. And they were tinkering rather than tonkering. And you know, we was kind of doing that. But at the same time, Pfizer corporate said, hey, this business is up for sale if somebody wants to buy it. PE company comes in and buys it. You know what? They go after the 60 million. They take no prisoners. They're not held back by those paradigms. They're not held back by those, you know, old sacred cows. And they went in and fundamentally transformed that business. So value does exist. And sometimes our self-limiting beliefs don't always allow us to get it. But the PE companies see it, right? And you guys can get it too. You're as smart as those people. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity. to get bigger and more profitable.
Mick, I've got my hand up. I want to say something. Okay, so I think what a beautiful point, but I don't want part of that point that you've mentioned, which I really love, is we can't get this lost. Is number one, first of all, I really and I must say the revenue factories that you've already created, in an industry where revenue factory would just, it would just be laughable, right? And the stuff that you've created, and I think it's part of that is your knowledge of this industry. Part of that is just, yes, there is a degree of technology that's involved, and but it's a process that you've developed, which I really, so guys, from no sales to the biggest sales guy, I'm saying I recommend Mick for your revenue factory, no doubt about it. So, but
yes, thank you. That commercial was on behalf of Flooring by the Numbers.
Do you think? You know what?
That's great because it's perfect. You're in the no sales department, and you did a paid service ad. That's beautiful. That's just, oh man, it's a moment. It's a moment.
You see, everybody has some hidden talent somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just, and in my case, it's just very, very, very hidden. You're right. Okay.
Right.
So
all right, let's get back to size.
But the one point I do want to mention, which is the thing, is when you have those capabilities, these what I call a core competency, you can take your business from a 3.5 to a 4.5 to even a 5.5. But without it, you're going to be between 2 and 3.5 times price earnings. So and think about that, guys, because I know, and as much as we want to believe it or not, there is a lot of you that have to think about transition. So, you're either going to go and transition to, if you're lucky enough to have, a Matt Brody, a Grant Pezzarelli, those type, if you're lucky to have that, which I don't think there's a lot of that around, you're going to have to transition. And if you transition and you want to get some real money out of your business, get a machine going. All right. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if you think about the industry, Mick, there's going to be two aspects, right? Can you see two aspects? Right?
I see a lot of gesticulation.
Okay.
I'm going with two.
You see what a round looks like. Okay. Yep. So if you can imagine a round graph, right? On this side, size is going to matter, dramatic, right? On this side, specialization is going to matter. So I'm thinking over the time, the industry is going to move in two directions. There's going to be the size direction, and there's going to be the specialization direction, like many industries. But here's what it is: there's going to be a thing you see right at the bottom of the bathtub, if you wish, if that's a bathtub, right?
Okay. I don't want to think about your bathtub, but go ahead.
Okay, so graphically, guys, when you look at this, you got to have friggin' imagination like you cannot believe, right? So there's the bathtub, right? Very good. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to be stuck at the bottom of the bathtub. And all I can say to you is make sure you're not one of them. That's all. Because you're neither going to be big, right? Nor are you going to be specialized. Nor do you have any of those strong core capabilities. Because specialization can also be, based on capability. I have a machine. I know how to create consistent. What are your words, Mick? Consistent, predictable revenue
generation. Yep.
And when you know about that, you specialize. You already, and the more you go up this curve, the more valuable you become. So strategically, guys, there is change. Change can be a big friend, and it can be a massive enemy. That's up to you. So, think about it, guys, strategically. It's either one side is going to be big, and if you're going to play in that space, make your business as pretty as possible. And let the big boys deal with your stuff. Or you're going to keep your business and you're going to become specialized.
All right.
And you'll win both ways.
Yeah. Okay. So Andre and I set ourselves the goal of we're going to try and make our live shows a little punchier. So we're 40 minutes in. We normally go for an hour. And we're going to try and keep it a little tighter, a little bit more focused. So hopefully you enjoyed what we had to talk about today. And as I said, next week we've got
I'm looking forward to Mike. Yeah, that'll be nice.
Mike Patton, who can talk to us more about those industry trends. So once again, thanks for joining us this week. And hey, if you want to be a guest on the show, let us know, because we think it would be. We'd like to have a guest every week. We think that would be a little bit more entertaining. That's what Andre and I are thinking. So we got Mike next week. Got an idea for a guest 2-3 weeks out. So if you want to be on the show, you got a point of view, we'd love to hear it. So thanks for joining us today.
Hey, bye-bye, everybody. Lovely to see you.
Thanks.
Cheers.